What if I told you one tiny stolen part helped win a hidden war in the skies? Not a bomb, not a fighter plane, just a piece of radar. In the dead of night during World War II, German night fighters were hunting British bombers with deadly precision. They could see in the dark, track targets, and strike without warning. The Allies were losing aircraft fast. But then, something unbelievable happened. A single mission, a risky landing behind enemy lines, and a decision to steal, not destroy. What they took would expose a secret and quietly cripple an entire system. What if the outcome of a deadly air war was changed not by firepower, but by curiosity? Not by destroying the enemy, but by understanding them. In the shadow-filled skies of World War II, a silent battle was unfolding every single night. British bombers flew in darkness, hoping invisibility would protect them. No lights, no warning, just engines humming over enemy territory. But something was hunting them, something that didn't need light. German night fighters had developed a terrifying edge, a system that allowed them to see in the dark. One by one, bombers began disappearing from the sky. Crews never returned. Missions ended in silence. Pilots whispered about it. A shadow in the night, an unseen hunter. The truth was even more chilling. Hidden inside those enemy aircraft was a piece of technology the Allies barely understood. A radar system so advanced for its time, it turned darkness into a weapon, and the Allies were blind to it. They didn't know how it worked. They didn't know how to stop it. And with every passing night, losses mounted. Commanders faced a terrifying reality. If they couldn't crack this secret, the bombing campaign could collapse entirely. So they made a decision that would change everything. Not to bomb harder, not to fly faster, but to steal. Somewhere out there, they needed a working example of this radar. Not reports, not guesses, the real thing. But how do you steal something from an enemy that controls the skies and the ground? It would take precision, timing, and a level of risk few were willing to accept, because this mission wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't make headlines. It would happen in silence behind enemy lines, with no guarantee anyone would make it back. But if it worked, they wouldn't just fight the enemy anymore. They would understand them. And in war, understanding is power. By 1942, German night fighters relied on advanced radar systems like Liechtenstein radar. It gave them a terrifying advantage, locking onto bombers in total darkness. The British needed to understand it. But there was only one problem. They had never seen it up close. Then came a rare opportunity. A German night fighter, damaged but intact, crash-landed in occupied territory. Instead of destroying it from the air, the Allies made a bold choice. Send a team in, steal the radar. Get out. Under the cover of darkness, commandos moved in. Every second mattered. Enemy patrols could arrive at any moment. They didn't take the whole plane. They didn't need to. They carefully removed just the radar components, the heart of the system, then vanished. When scientists examined it back in Britain, everything changed. They discovered how the radar worked, its frequencies, its weaknesses. Soon, British bombers began using countermeasures, like window strips of foil, to confuse German radar. And just like that, the hunters became blind. German night fighters, once unstoppable, were suddenly struggling to find their targets, all because of one stolen piece. The opportunity came suddenly. A German night fighter, equipped with a powerful Liechtenstein radar, was forced down in occupied territory. It was damaged, but not destroyed. For the Allies, this wasn't just wreckage. It was the answer. Instead of bombing the site, they planned something far more dangerous. A ground operation to recover the radar before German forces could secure or destroy it. Under the cover of darkness, a small team moved in. No backup, no second chances. The wreck lay exposed, a silent prize in hostile territory. Every second increased the risk of discovery. They didn't try to take the entire aircraft. That would be impossible. Instead, they focused on what mattered most, the radar system. Working carefully, urgently, they dismantled key components, cables, antennas, internal units. Every piece had to be intact. Every detail mattered. Then, just as quickly as they arrived, They disappeared into the night. Back in Britain, scientists and engineers began their work. For the first time, they could study the enemy's technology directly. They analyzed its signals, its frequencies, its limitations. And what they discovered changed everything. The radar had weaknesses, and those weaknesses could be exploited. Soon, British bombers were equipped with countermeasures, including thin strips of metal foil designed to confuse and overwhelm enemy radar. To the German systems, the skies suddenly filled with false targets. Noise replaced clarity. Precision turned into chaos. The hunters could no longer see, but the real impact of the stolen radar didn't end in the lab. It moved straight into the skies. Armed with new knowledge, the Allies didn't just defend, they adapted. Bomber crews were briefed on a completely new tactic. Something simple, yet revolutionary. Instead of hiding from radar, they would overwhelm it. As aircraft crossed into enemy territory, they began releasing thin strips of aluminum, known as window. At first, nothing seemed different, but inside German night fighters, radar screens began to flicker, then multiply, then explode with signals. What once showed a single, clear target now displayed hundreds. Pilots tried to lock on, but every direction looked the same. Every signal felt real. Every move became a guess. Coordination broke down. Ground controllers struggled to guide their fighters. Intercept paths became chaotic. Precise attacks turned into missed opportunities. And for the first time, German night fighters weren't hunting. They were searching, blindly. The skies that once belonged to them had turned into a maze of illusions, all created from the knowledge hidden inside that single stolen system. No massive explosion, no dramatic dogfight, just a silent mission and a stolen secret. It didn't just save planes, it saved lives. And it proved something powerful. Sometimes, the smallest piece of intelligence can change the course of war. But here's the real question. How many other hidden operations like this are still buried in history? Because in war, the loudest victories aren't always the ones that matter most. The shift wasn't immediate. There was no single moment where everything changed overnight. But slowly, undeniably, the balance began to tip. British bombers that once flew in fear now had a fighting chance. Missions that had ended in heavy losses began to succeed. German night fighters still took to the skies. But something was different. Their edge was gone. Where they once saw clear targets, now they saw confusion. Where they once struck with precision, now they hesitated. The invisible advantage they had relied on had been taken from them, not destroyed, stolen, and turned against them. What makes this story remarkable isn't just the technology, it's the strategy behind it. In a war defined by massive battles and overwhelming force, this victory came from something quieter: observation, patience, and a decision to learn instead of simply attack. A single piece of radar equipment, small, fragile, and easily overlooked, became the key to unlocking an entire system. And once that system was understood, it could be defeated. It's a reminder that wars aren't only won by weapons. They're won by ideas, by insight, by the moments when someone chooses to ask, how does this really work? Because once you have that answer, everything changes. And maybe that's the most fascinating part of all. Some of the most important missions in history don't leave behind ruins or headlines. They leave behind understanding. Invisible victories that reshape the battlefield in ways no one sees, until it's too late. So the next time you think about war, about power, technology, and dominance, remember this. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't pulling the trigger, it's stealing the secret. What makes this moment in history so powerful is how quietly it changed everything. There were no massive explosions announcing victory, no dramatic surrender, just a gradual shift, subtle, almost invisible, until the results became impossible to ignore. Losses dropped, missions improved, confidence returned, and deep within enemy lines, confusion grew. German crews knew something was wrong. Their once reliable systems were failing them, but they didn't know why. Imagine flying through darkness, trusting your instruments, only to realize they're lying to you. Every signal could be real, or nothing at all. That uncertainty is what broke their advantage. Not destruction, but doubt. And that doubt came from a single decision: to steal instead of destroy. It's easy to think of war as brute force, bigger weapons, faster planes, more power. But this story proves something different. Sometimes, the smartest move isn't to hit harder, it's to think deeper, to study the enemy, to understand their tools better than they do. Because once you understand something, you can control it. And once you control it, you can change the outcome of an entire battlefield without firing a shot. That stolen radar part wasn't just equipment. It was insight. It was leverage. It was the moment the Allies stopped reacting and started outsmarting. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden in this story. The greatest victories aren't always loud. Sometimes they're silent. They happen in the shadows, far from the front lines, in careful decisions, risky missions, and ideas powerful enough to reshape reality. Because, in the end, it wasn't the strongest side that won the night sky. It was the side that understood it better.